knowing your Office 365 authentication options. By the time we're done here, you will be able to determine what method of authentication you should use for your Office 365 users. If you were sitting at home just watching a movie and somebody wandered into your front door, you'd probably jump right off the couch and be like, "Whoa, who are you? What are you doing here?" As you slyly reach over for your Swiss Army knife sitting on the table, right? And we all know that's exactly what our Windows servers do every single day through this wonderful process known as authentication. We're validating that the people that are trying to use the system belong there and have access to those resources. And for a long, long time, that's been done through an on-premise Windows server that hosts Active Directory, which is simply a database of all of the user accounts and computer accounts that are authorized to use the resources, as well as the passwords associated with them, or whatever two-factor authentication you're trying to use. So what we've always done is set up our servers, create the Active Directory, start adding all of our users to that database, join our computers to the domain so that those can be controlled as well through a system known as group policy objects that can say what you can do on those computers. It can say how long the screensaver lasts. It can say what you get on your desktop and what permissions you have to that device, because it's completely controlled by the organization. But in our modern times, that's just one of 3 different authentication methods that you can use. And if there was this giant pendulum of authentication, I would say on-premise would be way over here on the left. And as that little ball flies all the way to the right, you would have cloud. And again, as we talk about Microsoft, that cloud is powered by Azure, which is the server infrastructure that Microsoft has built around the world through a series of data centers that holds exactly the same thing. It's an Active Directory database that contains all of the user accounts that has access to whatever resources you assign them. But now there's a distinct difference. The kind of resources that you'll assign for users that exist in the Azure cloud are usually things outside of your organization. For example, Office 365. You might have that user, Sally, that you say has an Office 365 license, which grants her access to the Microsoft Word and Excel programs. It gives her the ability to use your company's SharePoint site that's hosted in Office 365, to access the OneDrive files. All the Microsoft Office 365 services that exist can be assigned to Sally. You can't do that from your on-premise server. Likewise, Azure has the distinct advantage of having API access. It stands for Application Programming Interface. Just think of it like this big Lego piece in the sky that other websites can access to validate user accounts against Azure. And we've all seen this before. Let's say I'm going to a site like lucidcharts.com. And when I get there, I want to sign up for a new account. They're going to let me sign up with either my email address, you could call that a traditional login, or right down here you can see I can sign up with the Google Cloud or our Office 365 accounts. That's using the Azure backend. And we all love that because it's one less username and password that we have to maintain. We have one sign-in to rule them all. It's called single sign-in. And organizations love that as well because they're subscribing to a lot of those services. For example, Lucidcharts might be a company-funded purchase. And they want to make sure that when Sally leaves the organization over here, she doesn't have access to Lucidcharts anymore because it costs the company money. So by revoking that single account in the Azure cloud, they also cut off Lucidcharts and whatever other services are using that Office 365 account. Note to the end user, don't sign up for personal stuff using a corporate account. That's why Microsoft gives out Office 365 accounts for free for your personal use. But flip it the other way. Currently, Azure doesn't have a way to control devices. You don't join computers to the Azure domain, at least as it's fed through Office 365. So you don't have the ability to assign group policies, deploy printers, grant access to local resources that might exist within the company. And that is why option number 2 right here is awesome. Hybrid authentication, where you take your on-premise server and your on-premise database of all your users and computers and everything else that you've got going, and you tie it into the Azure cloud through a process known as federation. You literally link the 2 databases. When you create an account here, it shows up in Azure. When you change the password here, that password is now valid for Azure. That opens it to the whole world of single sign-on in the software as a service infrastructure that we live in today, but also makes that account available for all of the local resources that you want to assign. And that works awesome for a lot of organizations. For example, let's just say we are hosting Treetop Academy. Mike over here is a student at Treetop. When he signed up as a student, he got a school email address. He got his own little OneDrive account so he could save his music files and other music stuff. Obviously, I'm not a music guy. He gets access to the team site that the school uses to allow the students to collaborate on whatever pieces they're creating. And Mike combines with the drum guy and the flute player to create a wonderful orchestra of harmony. And all of that is done on his own device. He's got a smartphone or a tablet or a laptop or whatever his parents have purchased him. Or maybe even the school has given him. A lot of schools just hand out devices to the students. Now over here on the right-hand side, we have Samantha. And when she joined Treetop as a teacher, she was given a laptop. Now that laptop automatically has access to all of the printers. It automatically gets the shared drives and uses features like folder redirect to ensure all of the stuff that she stores on her laptop automatically backs up to an on-site server. And I'll also mention it has to stay FERPA compliant. What is that? Well, FERPA compliance is for educational institutions. It stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. And it's serious business. Like a school could lose all of its government funding, as in shut down, if they don't keep student records safe and secure. So it's set up that if Samantha were to ever leave that organization, with the click of a button, that laptop locks. All of the data on there is inaccessible. It's a whole nother level of security than what Mike needs. You get where I'm going with this, right? Perfect picture of the hybrid. Mike swings way over on the right. He's a cloud-only user. Samantha's created on the on-premise server, and all of the rights and permissions are controlled through that local Active Directory. But there's also a crossover for her. Maybe she's got access to the SharePoint site and the OneDrive, and she shares those same files with Mike over here, thus allowing her account to bleed into the Azure cloud and be assigned permissions from there. So let's end by asking, what would VIA do? First off, VIA is an IT services organization. It's my organization. We've got 30 employees who do a variety of functions. Most of them are service consultants that actually go out to the customers and set up their IT services and infrastructure and network and servers and all the other IT services that we provide. But in addition to that, we have accountants, we have project managers, we have human resources departments, all the same stuff that you would expect inside of an organization. In addition to 5 to 10 outside consultants who are experts in their field, and I can tell you right now, we are built for hybrid authentication. We'll have technicians on site modifying a customer information spreadsheet at the same time as somebody here at the office is modifying the same spreadsheet. And we've dealt with all of the read-only copies, and I'm overwriting the file with an older version, and it's just a mess. But the biggest problem is we are the shoemaker's kids. Have you ever heard the quote, the shoemaker's kids never have any shoes? We have amazing policies and procedures and standards that we apply to all of our customers, but most of the time, those policies originated from trying them out on our own company. We are the guinea pig. Our Active Directory probably has thousands of test accounts and users. And I'll tell you right now, our domain, which is currently called ssbcusa.local, is a mess. And if we're going to take that thing and federate it to Office 365, then guess what else is going to be a mess? All of our new stuff that we're rolling out in here. I would show you right now what this looks like, but you would probably run away screaming. You'll see that in the nuggets focused around the Active Directory migration tool. So our first step before we federate is to move to a clean domain. It will be called VIA-AD for ActiveDirectory.com. Now, I promised at the beginning that you will be able to determine the method of authentication you should use for your Office 365 users. Now that you understand your authentication options, here's what I want you to do. And this, by the way, is how you start an entire Office 365 migration. First off, if you're a consultant and you have an existing account that needs to move to Office 365, or you think Office 365 would benefit them in some way, target them. If you don't have an existing account, then find a great nonprofit. This, by the way, is how I've launched so many people into the IT services industry, is you go find a nonprofit that can't usually afford a super expensive consultant, who maybe doesn't even have an on-staff IT person. They just have somebody who kind of knows IT that makes do with a shoestring budget. Come in and donate your time and be totally upfront and say, hey, I'm learning this as well. This is my first time. I'd be willing to do this and donating my time for you just so I can learn and walk through this process and be able to do this competently for other organizations. You won't believe how many doors that will open. Who are those? Examples of nonprofits? Schools, churches, a lot of government organizations, service organizations. And I'll be completely honest with you right up front. Walking into a place that has no idea who you are and saying, I'm going to give you free IT services is kind of suspect. So before you do, donate some time. Help pick up bubblegum wrappers after a basketball game. Attend the church and be a door greeter. Get that relationship going so it's not weird for you to walk up and say, can I migrate you to Office 365 for free? However you get there, get your first meeting where you ask 1,000 questions. Some questions that I would ask. Do your employees work from home or do everything in the office? Are they using BYOD or managed devices? What would happen if somebody stole an organization's laptop? Does it have stuff on there that nobody else should get? Do you ever work with consultants? How do you do that? You're trying to determine, do we need to provide access to files in the cloud only, or is it just through a shared file on an on-premise server? What kind of applications do you use? How are those files saved? Is it all in the cloud as a service? Or do you still use locally installed applications to access your data? And this list goes on. There's a few more to 1,000 than 4. Twist that little diamond of an organization that you have so you can see every angle of what they do. And then from there, determine what authentication method they should use. On-prem only? In which case, this would be a very short series. Hybrid approach or cloud. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.